and welcome to Ag PhD. I'm Brian Hefty.
And I'm Darren Hefty. Thanks for joining us. You know, there's so much going on in the spring, and when it comes to wheat, I can't wait to get out there at the first pass because there are so many different things to do, from weed control to disease control to, oh, wait a second, this is just the introduction. There's lots of stuff. We'll talk about that today.
Well, you know what I can't wait to do, Darren, is actually plant some corn. I'm getting tired of all this snow being around. It's ridiculous this year. What a change from one year to the next. Well, last year, so many farmers were able to get their pre-emerge herbicides on way early, plenty of time to do it. This year, everything is condensed, so a lot of farmers are asking the question, can I still spray my pre-emerge herbicide post-emerge? We're going to talk about that today.
Well, the problem is a late freeze really doesn't kill our weed of the week, and neither does some snow. It still fights its way through, so we'll show you how to stop this tough weed. But first, here's this week's Farm Basics.
Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
During our Farm Basics time today, we wanted to talk a little about lime. And no, Darren, that it's not the lime you're going to put in your drink.
Well, I thought it was kind of tasty. You know, when we talk about agriculture, the best part is we have great food. And I thought, wow, limes are a tasty treat, especially in a dessert or in a drink.
Okay, so what we're talking about with lime is calcium carbonate. And I've gotten lots of questions from farmers, even just this spring, saying, what are those great big piles of white junk out in your fields? Why are they sitting there? And I said, they're fantastic. What that is, that's lime out of water treatment plants. We spread it out on our field. It raises our soil pH, and we're able to raise a lot better crop. So it's basically a waste product that was going to go in the landfill. We actually use it. Our plants can use it, and it's a great thing.
Well, one of my happiest days last fall was when I saw a great big pile of lime get delivered to the end of my field, because I knew I was going to fix things. As we're doing different things in our field over the last 100 years, the soil has changed a little bit. Now you think about some ground in where Brian and I are from in South Dakota. This ground was pasture and grassland at one point way back in time. But as the population of the world has grown, the demand for food has increased as well. So much of this grassland now has been broken up and farmed. Well, the old practices that were used back in the early part of this century were a little different than today. And commercial fertilizer wasn't available the way it is now. And there are just a lot of different things, from soil erosion and so forth. And in my particular ground, I've got some eroded hilltops. Now my pH is very high because some of the topsoil is washed away and the subsoil was a little bit higher in pH. So we're trying to deal with some of those issues. Then we've got other ground where we've got an extremely low pH. And that's where we're putting this lime on, to try and raise that soil pH up with a chemical reaction that this calcium carbonate has in our soil.
Okay, so in low pH soil, just as a real quick chemistry lesson here, what the problem really is we've got excess hydrogen. Now to get rid of that hydrogen, we can put calcium carbonate out, or as we call it, lime. Calcium carbonate is just calcium and carbon and oxygen. There's nothing real dangerous about it. There's nothing dangerous at all. I mean, heck, you could even eat lime, even this kind of lime, Darren. It wouldn't hurt you.
Might not be as tasty as the green fruit, though.
Probably not. But anyway, when you put that calcium carbonate out on this low pH ground, what will happen is you'll end up with three things that will come out of it. You'll have H2O, so water. You'll have carbon dioxide that can go up in the air, and you'll have calcium left. So when it's all said and done, you have more calcium to enrich your soil. You'll have your soil pH a little bit higher. You got rid of some of that hydrogen that was hurting your soil and hurting your crops. It's all a good thing.
And you actually feed your plants, because Brian talked about, well, carbon dioxide is one of the products of this chemical reaction. Well, guess what? It's going to be out in a field where we have growing plants. And a lot of times you hear about house plants that if your house plant isn't doing good, you just talk to it a little more. Well, why does that make a difference? Because carbon dioxide is what we're emitting when we're breathing out. And plants are taking in that carbon dioxide and getting food from that. So the plant needs to take in carbon dioxide, and that's released from this reaction. So it actually helps your plant growth as well.
So once again, lime in our discussion here is calcium carbonate. Where farmers will use this is if their soil pH is below about 6.3 or maybe below 6.0. If it's anything less than that for soil pH, farmers need to raise that pH for the most part, because most crops like to have about a neutral pH, which is a 7.0. So if the farmer puts lime out there, he can raise his pH up, and then he will raise a better crop. It's just a waste product, So it's a great thing for the environment
it's a
overall.
waste product
where we
in
can
one
use it.
system, but in farming it's
Right.
positive because we're putting more calcium in our fields. So we talked about low pH, but also the other situation is if we're just short in calcium.
Yep.
If you're looking at your base saturation on your soil test and you see that number less than 60%, that means there's not enough calcium out in your field, and you'll benefit putting lime on in those situations regardless of what the pH is in most cases.
Well, Darren, the only problem with making our soil better is now it's probably going to have a few more weeds. Those weeds are going to do better as well. And our weed of the week is one of the toughest ones that farmers will deal with in the spring. We'll show you how to control it coming up later in the show.
If you bought a new tractor, combine, or semi in the last year, you probably noticed it came with an extra tank. That's the one you fill with diesel exhaust fluid. I'm Bruce Vollen with Vollen Oil. Our customers are asking about diesel exhaust fluid, and the general rule of thumb is for every 3 times you fill your diesel tank, you'll need to fill your DEF tank once. And yes, we deliver that too. For your free fuel or DEF quote, give us a call at 529-5458 or check us out online at vollenoil.com.
Your equipment's ready. The seed's in the barn. You have a strategy to overcome the challenges you'll face, and your crop protection products are pretty well locked in. But maybe you still haven't finalized your fertilizer plans. If not, visit agroliquid.com today. With products formulated for superior nutrient uptake, unsurpassed application flexibility, and proven by years of extensive research, this may be the season to take your yields to the next level using agriculture liquid fertilizers.
For years, FarmLogic has been the easiest and most convenient way to keep up with your farming operations. Well, it just got better. Introducing FarmPad for your phone. You always have your phone with you, so entering records as they happen is as easy as a touch of a button. Chemical database, GPS, service records, and more. When you do it on the farm, save it on your phone and it's backed up forever. Call or visit farmlogic.com for a free trial and find out why FarmLogic is the best decision tool for the farm.
Looking to maximize yield? QuickRoots is a microbial seed inoculant that allows the plant root to explore a greater volume of soil, the key to higher yields. QuickRoots continues to generate yield response on corn, soybeans, wheat, and more. QuickRoots is applied to the seeds so the live microorganisms go right to work, enhancing seedling vigor, increasing the uptake of certain nutrients including NPK, and expanding root volume. Maximize yield on your farm this season. Call TJ Technologies or your local dealer and get your QuickRoots today.
Today's Case IH equipment is packed with industry-leading technology, and Titan Machinery has the experts to make it perform to its maximum potential. We have a team of specialists and the entire Titan Machinery network to provide you with the expertise to keep up with today's advanced machines. Whether it be for your Case IH planters, sprayers, or precision farming equipment, our experts have the answers to get the most out of your equipment investment. Maximize your productivity with Titan Machinery. Better solutions.
Well, Darren, as soon as the snow's gone, then we can actually spray our spring wheat.
See, this is one of the secrets that we've got up in the Dakotas, and people say, what's your secret? How come your farm is doing so well? Why are you raising such big yields? Well, we get snow pretty much 12 months out of the year. No, not exactly.
Close.
but this year we were blessed with some really late snow and lots of it. It created a little challenge for us in some of our production fields. Now, in much of the ground or much of the area, the snow is completely gone. And in those cases, the wheat fields have greened back up and guys are rolling in the fields. And when it comes to that first pass through your wheat fields in the spring, there are a lot of different ways you can go with what you're going to put in the tank. You may be controlling weeds, you may be after disease control, you may be putting some more fertilizer on, there may be some biologicals you're interested in, you may even have some bugs out there you're spraying insecticides for. So there's really 5 different things that you might be doing. And Brian, can you mix all those in the tank at the same time and be successful?
Well, you probably can, but you better do a jar test first. That's all I have to say. And there are going to be
That's kind of non-committal.
Right, but there are going to be some products you don't want to mix together. The example I always give is even like Headline, or let's call it Quilt or whatever, you put that together with something that's kind of hot. Like let's say Bronate or Wolfpack. The Bronate or Wolfpack, it's got some adjuvants in there that are pretty harsh, and then you put it together with Headline that has some adjuvants that are, not super harsh, but a little bit. You get the two things together and you'll see a little more leaf burn than normal, especially in a cool spring like this. And the reason why is in cool springs, you don't have very thick leaf cuticles. You see, in hot, dry conditions, the leaf cuticle will thicken, and then those harsh adjuvants, it's no big deal. They're into that wax, that cuticle, and they're used to bust through that wax. Well, in a year like this when we don't have much cuticle, it goes right into the plant and you will see more leaf burn than normal. That's not to say that we're going to have yield loss, but you are going to see some crop response. You're going to see some leaf burn.
And really, I mean, you just have to think about it. With whatever mix you're doing, reevaluate it every year. Number one, on price, because the prices change a lot, rebate programs change a lot, those kind of things. For example, you say, well, I used this particular fungicide last year, but wow, there's a great rebate on this one that ties in with the herbicide I like this year. I could save a few dollars an acre and get the same performance. That's fine to do, and you should be thinking about that every year.
Okay, let's take these things one at a time though. Let's begin with the herbicide. That's probably the most important thing. Out of all these 5, you've got to make sure you've got your weeds under control. Now, if you didn't get a pre-emerge herbicide out, hopefully you did. But if you didn't, chances are you've got some grass in there. You want to get the grass under control first because that's going to hurt your yield more. Chances are. I mean, not in all cases, but most likely grass is number 1. So get that under control, especially if it's something like wild oats or downy brome. If it's wild oats, then Axial's probably the best product. There are other products out there.
2.0 is fine if you want a different mode of action. That's an ALS, where that Axial is an ACCase type product.
Yep, if you've got downy brome, that gets a lot tougher. That's where the Everest to be a little bit better. That's not that great. Gold Sky might be a better option for you. Okay, in terms of broadleaf control, Wide Match is the very best thing you can use on kochia and on thistle. When it comes to just about all other weeds, Husky is probably superior unless you want to tank mix something like Addition Broadspec in with your Wide Match.
When it comes to disease prevention, now is the time to get going. It's cooler, it's wetter, your plants are small and close to the soil. There's a lot of different reasons why you could have more disease pressure early in the season. So when you're thinking about it, we're looking at tan spot and some of the other diseases. If you're already seeing them on your plants, you're too late for the best thing. You're already going to have some yield loss at that point. You need to get out there before you see a lot of that disease. That's why this first pass is so critical.
Yeah, but the good news is you can probably get by with a half rate. The plants are so small. You think about the coverage you're going to get on that small plant. A half rate is going to actually give you more dose than a full rate later on with a plant that's 10 times as big. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of guys will go half rate. Although on our farm this year, because it's so damp, we're probably going to use a full rate just to be on the safe side and leave us a little more residual.
And there are a lot of choices there. The strobilurins and the triazoles or combinations thereof will all work in that situation depending on what diseases you're fighting.
Okay, let's talk about insecticides. This has been my favorite thing to discuss in wheat the last few years. I'm going to put it real simple for you in 5 seconds. Get off your sprayer, scout your field. If you see bugs, spray them. It only costs $2 an acre. That's it.
Well, and you aren't going to probably see the bugs from your cap. You got to get out there and look around with the sweep net or with your baseball cap or whatever the case may be. Look for those bugs, because if there's bugs out there that are going to hurt your yield, it's important that we get them under control, and it's really inexpensive to do it. Then let's look at fertility. You can still put fertilizer on post-emerge, but you have to be careful. You can't broadcast spray nitrogen anymore. If you do, you're going to burn leaves, and that's going to hurt you in the end. What you want to do is either stream bar that nitrogen on if you need some more nitrogen. You could potentially broadcast some urea out there if you're going to get some rain really quickly to wash it down into the soil. But the other thing that a lot of people look at this point is, hey, I need to get some micronutrients out there, and that's fine in many of the mixes that you're going to do, but be careful, it will add some heat to those mixes with some of the herbicides.
Yeah, so very likely you're going to have to spray whatever you do for nutrients all by itself. Just talk to your agronomist. Okay, let's get to the last thing, biological products, or let's put it even into another category, plant growth hormones, Darren.
Well, there are a number of different products that you can spray, and some may be available in one part of the country and not in others, or may be labeled only in a few states. But there are things like Rise Up Smart Grass, for example, on cool springs like this that can have really good potential for plant growth improvement on grass crops. It's been used for years on pastures. It's been used in silage corn. There's a number of different grass crops that can be used on. That may be one of the things that you consider.
There's also a product called Mega Grow that we'll use on our farm. That's plant growth hormones, and we've seen response. A lot of people have seen response. We typically use it with Roundup in Roundup Ready crops, but even in wheat, we've had good response. There are several others that you may consider trying. We just want you to experiment with some things on the farm, because the biological industry, that is really changing. The science is getting dramatically better, and we think it's the next wave in agriculture, and everyone's going to be using good biological products, and multiple ones, in the coming years.
Well, one other thing you may have to watch out for on your first pass through your wheat field is our Weed of the Week. Can you identify this week's weed?
Hey everybody, I'm Steve Azar, singer-songwriter. Really happy that Brad Swinson and Swinson Investments asked me to write the song American Farmer.
American Farmer.
I've had the pleasure of getting to know the fine folks at Swenson, and I gotta ask you, do you know what would happen to your farm if something happened to you? Swenson's works with farmers, lawyers, and their advisors to put together the best estate plan. Hey, you work hard for your farm. They work hard to help you keep it.
There are more mouths to feed than ever before. What are farmers doing to meet the challenge? They're using agronomically designed equipment from Case IH. Our Quadtrac technology, soil management, and planting systems are designed to foster a better growing environment that helps farmers maximize yield potential. And our deep understanding of agriculture is preparing them for the challenges ahead. Will you be ready?
I'm ready.
Go to caseih.com to learn more.
You expect a lot from this seed, and as it grows through each stage of development, Agroculture Liquid Fertilizers is there, feeding your crop exactly what it needs when it needs it. So no matter how you fertilize, no matter when, AgroLiquid efficiently brings all the nutrients your crop needs for a great harvest. From 1 kernel in the ground to 600 on the ear. For better yields and better quality, Agroculture Liquid Fertilizers.
What's new for 2013? Challenge 2050. Challenge 2050 is a 2-component system consisting of a nutrient and a biological additive. This groundbreaking fertilizer contains mycorrhizal fungi, which provide an extended transport system that allows water and nutrients to be delivered directly into the root. Challenge 2050 can increase yield and efficiency of your standard fertilizer program. Challenge 2050 is the future of fertilizer. Call TJ Technologies or your fertilizer dealer and get Challenge 2050 today.
For lower cost, higher production, Mandaco Agri leads with versatility unmatched. Twister is the vertical tillage unit for no-till as well as conventional tillage. Twister's ease of maintenance is forgiving and rocks and has contour conformity equaling 0 downtime. Our hydraulically adjusted coulter angles make residue management easier, less costly. Spring or fall, the Mandaco Twister vertical tillage unit is the new leader. See your Mandaco Agri dealer. Visit northcountrymarketing.biz or call.
Okay, Darren, I just had a question this morning. The farmer called me and he said, hey, I got this triple flex to use in my corn. I was really excited about using it. Thought it was going to be pretty good for grass and broadleaves and everything. But here's the problem. Now my corn has started to emerge. Now what do I do?
You know what? I'm glad we got the question, Brian, because there are some products out there that if you bought them and you say, man, I didn't get them on, now the corn's up, you're in trouble. Like Verdict, for example. It's got sharpen in it. It's a nice product and everything, but you can't use it post-emerge or the verdict is just too harsh on the crop. But there are quite a few that are safe and labeled to use on corn up to roughly around 11 inches. Now the labels may vary from one product to the next, but for the most part, you've got several weeks here that you can get those products on, and it's still important that you do so. When we think about those pre-emerge products, the big characteristic they all have is residual control. And when you look at your crop, and even if you say, hey, I've got Roundup Ready corn, and in my area, Roundup's still controlling all the weeds, that's great. But you still need some residual control because Roundup doesn't have any. So if you've got something like a Triple Flex or like a Harness, or there's a number of different products out there that are going to carry you through and hold weeds down for a long time, that's a big benefit.
Yeah, now you mentioned Verdict that you can't use post-emerge. Sharpen would be in that same category. That's part of Verdict. But the other product that used to not be able to be used post was Balance. Now there's Balance Flex, and you actually can spray that post-emerge. But the problem is a lot of people think, well, I can throw Roundup together with Balance Flex and spray that early post-emerge. No, you can't do that. Even when it is used post-emerge, you can only use it up to V2. So real small corn. You got to get right after it right now if your corn started to emerge.
All right, well, let's just talk about the straight grass products. You've got things like Harness, Surpass, Dual, Outlook. They work nicely and they can be used pre-emerge. That's the best way to use them in my opinion, but post-emerge can be done as well. They will not burn down grass that's already up.
Right.
So if you've got grasses that are already up, you're going to need to mix some Roundup with it to make sure you kill those grasses that are out there if you have Roundup corn. Then you can burn grasses down and have the residual from something like the Harness. Now you're going to need some rain to get that working too. If your soil is fully saturated with moisture and your tile lines are running and you say, man, my tile was running, I've got moisture all the way through my soil, you probably won't need much to get that herbicide washed down in there and going. If you have a lot of residue on top that you just sprayed that herbicide on, guess what? You're going to need a little more moisture to get it off the residue and into the soil and into the roots of those weeds. We started this whole conversation about some of the combination herbicides, and we get questions all the time, hey, should I use one of these combo products or not? You think about it, say you've got something like Triple Flex or Sure Start, you've got Hornet in there, which is a pretty good broadleaf herbicide that also has broadleaf residual, putting that on pre-emerge. So if you get it out there, you can burn down weeds that are up, and you also have some residual on grass and broadleaf weeds. So you just have to talk to your agronomist about what rate should I do now that I'm in this post-emerge situation. Should I use the same rate that I was going to use pre, or should I up it a little bit or cut back?
Right, and the good news is these are different modes of action than what Roundup is. So even if you think, hey, I don't have Roundup resistant weeds, maybe you do, you're on the safe side when you're using those combo products.
Well, and then the question too is, will I gain enough yield to justify the cost?
Yeah, but the way I look at it, when you've got $5 corn in the fall, yes, I know it's not $7, but if you have $5 corn in the fall, that's still pretty good. You don't need a lot of gain, a lot of extra yield to pay for that difference. And don't forget, you know, everybody's talking about insects and diseases and all this other stuff. Weeds are still one of the most important things we got to focus on every year. If you don't have great weed control, you don't have great yield.
Well, speaking of weed control, we've got a tough weed to control here, Brian. We'll show you how to stop it coming up next.
The Weed of the Week is sponsored by the Enlist Weed Control System from Dow AgroSciences, a new herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate.
You work to protect your farm's legacy and to keep it going. Introducing the Enlist Weed Control System, an advanced herbicide and trait system that will build on glyphosate for exceptional control of tough weeds. The next chapter begins.
Our weed of the week is Marestail, and this one, Darren, is Roundup resistant across most of the country.
Yeah, it's quickly becoming one of the most feared weeds, especially by no-tillers. With many of the Marestail that we're seeing across the country, they actually get a start in the fall and they're winter annuals. Now, a number of places are saying that the Marestail they're seeing is actually starting to come up in the spring, and that's being Roundup resistant too. So Marestail can be a tough one. It can come up in the fall, which is where I think it's the most tough, because then it has a great big root mass when you come out there in the spring trying to do a burn down.
Yeah, but I love it when it comes up in the fall, because then what we do on our farm is we go out with 1 full quart of Banville, and that wipes it out for good. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying 1 pint. I'm saying a full quart. This is not an in-crop rate. This is a burn down rate only in the fall. Can't do it in the spring. This is a fall treatment, but it's awesome. We've done that on quite a few acres where we've been no-till or strip-till, and Marestail has gotten bad. This quart of Banville thing will also take care of dandelions, all the rest of the winter annuals.
Oh yeah, it'll pretty much kill all the broadleaves, there's no doubt there. But the other thing that some guys will say is, well, wait a minute, I'm spraying some 2,4-D in my pasture at that time. Could I do that too? Sure, you've got plenty of time if you're not planting a crop until spring for that to break down, so you shouldn't really see any issue that way, so that could be fine. Now in the spring, here's where it gets interesting. One of the best products just came out not that many years ago. It's Sharpen. It's pretty good.
Okay, Sharpen is good, but you want to put methylated seed oil with it. And the problem with Sharpen is you can't use a high rate in beans. Yeah, I can use a high rate in front of wheat or in front of corn.
You know, high enough to kill it on its own.
Right, but I can't use a high rate in beans. And if I use Sharpen, that means I can't use Valor or Authority. So what I'd rather do is I'd rather use a high rate of Valor or Authority plus Metribuzin plus Roundup, and then I'm probably going to get it, hopefully. Compaction is another thing you can use. It's okay. I don't love it. For one, it doesn't have any residual, but if we can stop Marestail right now, it usually doesn't come up after this date. So I'm most concerned about let's get that field clean. And by the way, if you say, well, I'll just do tillage. Well, we've tried that on our farm, but if you don't do serious tillage, a lot of times all you do is kink that plant over and it keeps growing, so you really didn't do yourself a whole lot of good.
And what about all these new traits we hear about?
Well, I'm super excited. In 2 years, we can spray Banville or 2,4-D in front of Banville or 2,4-D, well, I call it Banville tolerant beans. It's dicamba tolerant soybeans that are kind of going to come out from Monsanto, 2,4-D or Enlist tolerant soybeans that are going to come out from Dow. That's going to be awesome because not only can I use those products post-emerge, but I can also use them pre in a good burn down like this.
Well, that sure is exciting, Brian, because I will be so happy when Marestail is much easier to control. That's all the time we have for our weed, but Iron Talk is coming up next.
Iron Talk is brought to you by Case IH.
What are farmers doing to feed the planet? They're using Quadtrac technology, soil management, and planting systems from Case IH to foster a better growing environment that maximizes yield potential. Visit caseih.com to be ready.
If conditions are perfect in your field, planting is no problem. But what if it's just a little bit wet? We'll talk about it in today's Iron Talk. One of the challenges that has come up in a wet spring that's a little different than it used to be is many farmers now have bulk fill on their planters. It's a great convenience to be able to load a whole bunch of seed on in one shot and not have to fill up all the time. But what can it cost you in a wet year? One of the big problems with having a lot of weight on those center row units is that we're going to see some compaction or some pinching from those wheels on the planter. One simple solution is to not fill that bulk fill all the way full. For example, let's say the bulk fill can hold 100 units of seed, and each unit of seed weighs 50 pounds. That's 5,000 pounds that you'd be putting onto your planter. What you could simply do is only load it half full. Yes, you'll have to fill up twice as often, but now you've taken 2,500 pounds of weight off your planter. Let's say that you're adding all this weight on your planter and it's creating some compaction, and that compaction costs you 8 bushels of corn per acre. If corn was $5, 8 bushels times $5 would be $40 an acre damage you would do. Let's say you're running over 80 acres an hour with your planter. That would be $3,200 an hour in damage. So think about it. Don't fill that bulk fill completely full this year if the ground conditions are a little too moist. It could save you a lot of trouble down the road. That's all for today's Iron Talk, and now back to the show.
Wake up, breakfast is served. Your roots crave pea. Most of your applied pea gets tied up in the soil, a natural phenomenon known as phosphorus fixation. Fix the problem with Avail Phosphorus Fertilizer Enhancer. Avail makes more pea available to your roots, here, here, and here. Increasing pea availability can lead to increased pea uptake in the plant. That's more pea, and more pea. More phosphorus for your crop can mean more results in your bin. An average of 9.9 bushels per acre of corn. Breakfast is served. Supercharge your pea with Avail.
Speed, strength, and efficiency make Capello corn heads a head above the rest. Built with polymer components that exceed industry standards, Capello corn heads continue to push the boundaries for maximizing grain retention while using less energy. Visit CapelloUSA.com and learn more about Capello's state-of-the-art chopping technology that cuts cleaner, allowing your horsepower to remain where it belongs, with your combine, so you can harvest faster in all weather conditions. Add to that an amazing folding feature, and it's clear to see why Capello is a head above the rest.
Closed captioning for Ag PhD is sponsored by Norwood Sales.
The all-new S-Cube commercial tender is the only tender on the market with poly tanks, giving you the capability to haul seed, fertilizer, water, or liquid fertilizer. Each cube can hold 300 units of seed, 2,000 gallons of liquid, or 300 cubic feet of fertilizer. Options include full functioning wireless remote, stainless steel conveyors, and self-contained hydraulics. Get yours today at Norwood Sales.
Well, that's all time we have for today's show, but be sure to join us again next time for another Weed of the Week, Farm Basics, Iron Talk, and a whole lot more. I'm Darren Hefty.
And I'm Brian Hefty. Thanks for watching Ag PhD.
Can you increase your field's topsoil layer by reducing tillage, planting high residue crops, utilizing cover crops, and adding manure to the soil? Topsoil can be rebuilt. For more information, visit the Responsible Nutrient Management Foundation at rnmf.org.